Good evening. I hereby call to order the action session of the Board of School Commissioners for Thursday, March 15th. The colors this evening will be posted by the Color Guard from Arsenal Tech High School, led by Cadre Advisor Captain Fermin Hernandez. Colors are presented by Cadet First Lieutenant William Bartholomew, Cadet Second Lieutenant Tamia McCoy, Cadet Staff Sergeant Sean Hanley, Cadet Sergeant First Class Hamina Carmona, and Cadet Lieutenant Marcus Tenner. Cadet Colonel Shelby Searcy will lead us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise for the presentation of colors.
Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order, arm, outward, face, forward, march. Forward, halt, prepare to pose. Pose. Breathe in, arm. Order, arm. Inward, face. Forward, march. Forward, halt, outward, face. Right, face. Forward, march.
Thank you to the Color Guard from Arsenal Tech High School. Mr. Mulholland, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Arnold,
Here.
Commissioner Bentley,
Here.
Secretary Gore,
Here.
Commissioner Hoops,
Here.
Vice President Moore, President O'Connor,
Here.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Mulholland. We'll now adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting. The agenda was reviewed on Tuesday and reflects all necessary modifications or additions. I do want to note that the budget adoption items have been consolidated under a new agenda category, Section 7, for clarity, and agenda items have been updated accordingly. Reviewing the modified agenda, are there any requests for changes to the agenda as presented? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is adopted. We'll now proceed to Section 2 of the agenda. This evening's student performance will be provided by the Arlington High School Concert Choir, made up of Jasmine Hill, Adacia Winters, Jamare Bates, Yeza Wood, Maya Wilson, Joy Mosley, and Alexis Perriman. They will perform tonight Lift Up Every Voice, Adoramus Te, and Every Praise, directed by Matthew Jackson and accompanied by Alice Hopkins on the piano. Please welcome tonight's student performers from Arlington High School.
Lift up every voice and let us now rejoice to sing this song of joy. We lift up every voice to sing this song of joy. We lift up every voice. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Let us sing again and keep our voices strong as we sing.
Thank you again to the Arlington High School Concert Choir and the student performers. We have two special recognitions this evening from Shortridge High School. I would ask Principal Shane O'Day to join Dr. Farabee on stage as we recognize the honorees. Commissioner Bentley, would you please read the first recognition?
Today, we would like to acknowledge Jennifer Maxwell. Ms. Maxwell was nominated by Principal Shane O'Day at Shortridge High School for being one of their rock star parent volunteers. Mrs. Maxwell is an avid attendee at Shortridge athletic programs, cheering on the student athletes by name. Her enthusiasm is always on display when she manages the concessions for volleyball games, sells tickets at soccer games, or supports the football team. In addition, she coordinates the volunteer efforts for all athletic events. Mrs. Maxwell's constant positive presence extends beyond athletics. She attends the school's Parent in Touch Day and open house, welcoming families into Shortridge with a warm smile and friendly conversation. For all of these reasons and many more, we are happy to recognize and honor Jennifer Maxwell for her outstanding commitment to Shortridge High School. Ms. Maxwell, thank you for your service.
At tonight's meeting, we would also like to recognize Chris Mundy Sr. Mr. Mundy was also nominated by Principal Shane O'Day at Shortridge High School for being a superstar parent and community partner and contributing so much to their school. Mr. Mundy also always attends Shortridge athletic events and programs and cheers on their scholar athletes by name. He has also represented the school in district-level meetings and regularly reviews parent involvement policy and school improvement plans. His background in youth and community development is a huge asset to the growth of the school community. For all of these reasons and more, we are happy to recognize and honor Chris Mundy Sr. for his outstanding dedication to the Shortridge High School community. Mr. Mundy, thank you for your service.
Moving to section 3 for the opening comments. Does any commissioner this evening wish to offer any opening comments? We will now receive public comment from those individuals who've signed up to offer comments to the board this evening. I'll remind our speakers that you're allowed 3 minutes to offer comments to the board. The timer will start when you begin, and I ask you to briefly conclude your remarks when you hear the timer go off. Comments should be directed to the board collectively, should be respectful, and should not address a topic that might be of a confidential nature or would compromise the impartiality of the board. I will also remind speakers that while the board is happy to receive your comments this evening, we will not respond or answer any questions at this time. If you sign to speak up on a particular topic on tonight's agenda, you'll be called to speak when that item is before the board. Please come to the podium and begin your comments when your name is called.
Mary Ann Schlegel-Ruger, followed by Charity Scott.
Good evening, I'm Charity. I don't think Marianne's here. Everyone can agree that teachers and support staff need to be paid more for educating society's children 6 periods a day, 5 days a week. I was a teacher. It is exhausting on every level, but promising teachers higher pay or a bonus, like the $5,000 bonus teachers at transitioning schools are promised to get if they remain through the year, is not enough to retain teachers. It is the environment in which teachers teach and staff work that dictates whether or not they will stick it out. School and district leadership create that environment, and that environment in many schools is tumultuous. Some of the reasons being the transitioning of the district to the all-choice model, forcing staff to reapply for jobs, the cutting of arts programs in the middle of the school year, cutting special education positions in the middle of the school year, and converting schools to innovation network schools. All of these and many others cause teacher turnover. Teacher and staff turnover, which should not be risked, as the state of Indiana and the nation are facing a teacher shortage. I was thrilled to learn that Super School 19 was taken off the agenda for conversion. The Ips Community Coalition was anonymously given survey data about teachers and staff leaving if Super School 19 was converted. Without conversion, almost 80% of the staff indicated they would remain at the school. With conversion, that number dropped to 45%, meaning up to 55% would have left. It makes me wonder what the numbers for the other schools being voted on today and any on the docket in the future. There have already been stories of student teachers worrying at School 14 about the number of teachers leaving due to the uncertainty. Therefore, I ask the following questions. What data is being collected about potential innovation school conversions and staff mobility? What percentage of each school is staffed with long-term substitutes? There has been chatter that 50% of teachers at Crispus Attucks are long-term substitutes. And what percentage of teachers eligible for the transition bonus have left the district anyway? Due to the statewide shortages, these professionals can definitely find employment elsewhere. Yes, teachers and staff need to make more money, but it will not fix the overall management issues the district has. Management issues that I would hope the HR department is looking into by surveying current and former staff to gather feedback on how to best retain them. There's already peer-reviewed research out there that can help inform these surveys. Too many of the changes being made by the district are superficial. The environment in which teachers teach and staff work is not improving. Teachers and staff are continuing to leave, students and communities are losing. Lastly, I want to point out that the transportation issue, which should have been discussed at the time that the all-choice model was discussed months ago. It is directly related and at that time should have been apparent to the administration that transportation would indeed be a problem. The last-minute discussion of this huge change is confusing and stressful for parents and students. Another example of poor management. Thank you.
Christina Smith.
Good evening, board members. I see that the innovation proposal for Super School 19 has been removed from the agenda tonight. I hope that this was done because of the many parents and teachers who are in opposition to their school becoming an innovation school. Ips Community Coalition would like to thank Commissioner Gore for attending the latest of these meetings. She was able to see firsthand that many parents and teachers do not support the plan. The Ips Community Coalition Executive Director emailed you all to make sure that you were aware of this as well. What you may not have been aware of is that teachers were not invited to this meeting and only found out about it from parents. Parents were individually called by someone. They're unsure who it was that was calling them. School administration made false claims and did not clearly and accurately answer questions that were asked. Once again, Stand for Children ran the parent portion of the meeting, answering questions. Why is Stand for Children running meetings in IPS? This is the Indianapolis Public School District, not the Stand for Children District. I'm pleading with the board and the IPS administration to not approve any more innovation schools for the 2018-2019 school year. The first lottery round for choice programs has already ended and students assigned, including out-of-district students. The second lottery round will end by the next board meeting. This greatly decreases a student's opportunity to change to a different or new choice program in the district should they not want to attend an innovation school. It is also a great concern that neighborhood schools continue to be handed over to charter operators and turned into innovation schools. If a family cannot get into a choice program or doesn't want to attend a choice program, they have no other options for neighborhood schools because transportation will not be provided. You are forcing families to attend a school that they did not choose. For a district that is all about choice, you are once again removing a family's ability to make any real choice. That is not how a public school district should operate. Ips Community Coalition has been contacted by several parents and teachers from Super School 19 and other IPS schools regarding a variety of issues. When we are encouraging them to contact the board and give comment at board meetings, they are hesitant and often refuse. They have witnessed any opposition be ignored and sometimes ridiculed, even publicly. This message from the board has been very clear. If you do not agree with us, if you are not with Stand for Children, if you are not supported by the Mind Trust, you do not matter. I want to remind the board that while you may not think that parents in the community matter, we do. We may not be able to have a vote on the IPS school board, but we do have a vote at the ballot box. Thank you.
Danielle Wilson.
Good evening. I'm Danielle. My husband Brandon and I, we live in the Hawthorne neighborhood, and we are zoned for School 63, which is on the docket to talk about the restart tonight. I just wanted to speak in favor of the restart and of Matchbook. My husband Brandon and I have gotten to know Sajin and his family since they moved to town. We've heard him talk about his vision and his plan with Matchbook Learning. And we're very excited about the opportunity to have Matchbook come to our neighborhood. We're excited just about having additional choices to send our kids when we have kids that are school age. And we just wanted to say that we're very much in favor of that. Thank you.
That is the list of speakers from the open comment portion. We did have a number of individuals who signed up to offer comment on Super School 19 this evening. That item has been removed from the agenda, and the proposal is not being considered for action at this time. If you signed up to comment and would still like to speak, please feel free to come to the podium, give your name, and be mindful of the 3-minute limits and other guidelines I issued before the public comment period. Moving on. Thank you. Having received opening comments from the board and the public, we'll now proceed to the consent agenda. Item 4. The items on the consent agenda were reviewed at our agenda review session on Tuesday and reflect all necessary Oh, sorry. Could you come to the podium, ma'am? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dina Williams, and I'm a parent of 2 boys at Crispus Attucks. And I come to you today respectfully and humbly as a parent. My question is, should parental and community members have influence on school management? My sons attend Crispus Attucks and are very proud Tigers. You will find me at their games, their school, their baseball games, their art events, their friend's house, and etc. I'm a very involved parent. I have been on the PTA for 4 years. According to the ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, it states that as a parent and a community member, because we bought a home here in the city of Indianapolis when Dr. Farabee came here and said that he was going to transform the schools. I was very, very much behind that and in alignment of that. We lived in Noblesville at the time, and we relocated to the Butler-Tarkington area. And we did that in hopes of our sons having a trajectory of success and college readiness. Here's the dilemma that I'm facing. It does say in Every Student Succeed Act that I have a voice. I have come here to firmly state that I believe, and in my opinion, that the principal of Crispus Attucks has become a barrier of the ESSA Act. As a leader, she has failed to communicate and historically has developed not positive relationships with her parents or community. I have been a liaison, and I have stayed completely neutral and respectful to the principal as the building leader. I must trust her. My sons' lives depend on the decisions that she makes or fails to make. As a PTA member for over 4 years, and for the 3 years that Mrs. Franklin has been the principal, she has been dismissive and deliberately misled Us as PTA members stalled on ideas and projects that we as parents fostered and raised money for. The principal is an obstruction to the maximum success of the students. The data of the last test, which has become a point of contention between myself and the principal, is just disturbing to me. The data is disturbing. And when I tried to talk about it, I was told that I could not. So these are the questions that I ask you. What do these failure rates mean to you? Do they constitute an emergency? There is no required mandatory after-school tutoring or spring intercession planned for the children of Crispus addicts. And I cannot get an answer why that is happening. And so I just come to you today to ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Having received opening comments from the board and public, we'll now proceed to the consent agenda. The items on the consent agenda were reviewed at our agenda review session on Tuesday and reflect all necessary modifications. I would note that the construction management guaranteed maximum price item listed on 8.04 in the unfinished business is included in the capital projects report in the consent agenda. This was discussed at Tuesday's agenda review session. Unless there are objections, we'll take that action on this item now and not separately under the unfinished business. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. We do not have any board reports this evening, so I'll turn the agenda over to Dr. Farabee for superintendent reports.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you, President O'Connor. We have one item that was presented on Tuesday evening. Typically, our superintendent reports are presented on Thursday. However, due to a scheduling conflict, we did have a property tax base analysis that was presented on Tuesday evening, and our Chief Financial Manager, Weston Young, will provide a brief overview of what was presented to Commissioners on Tuesday evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. So we had the chance on Tuesday night to hear from Jason O'Neill of Policy Analytics. They had been hired in the fall of 2017 to give our administration and also our public and our commissioners more detailed information and education on our current tax base. Tuesday night, won't go into great detail in what Jason had reviewed, but basically trying to give a historical perspective of the tax base. Many times we're talking about the net assessed value, and on the screen what Jason shared was the NAV back in 2005 through 2008 being at a high point, and that was pre-recession, the real estate boom and bust in the 2008-2009 10 frame. Since that time frame, we've seen the NAV climb over time. That NAV is key because the tax rates that property tax owners, whether residential, commercial, or residential rental, that NAV is basically the value and the wealth of our city. And that's what the tax rate is applied against. We looked at the different growth of different types of properties. So we had commercial growth, we had residential growth, and personal growth. We have basically a composition of that growth in the gross assessed value being 62% residential, 17% of that being personal, and 21% of it being commercial. What's shown on the screen now is a map of the IPS district. What I think is important for everybody to know is that the IPS district touches just about every township in Marion County. The only township that does not touch is Franklin Township, and so what we have on the right-hand side of the screen is the distribution of the homestead assessed values, basically the fair market values of property in the IPS district, which over half of it resides in the 75,000 or less amounts in our district. You can see on the map, the heat map being the blue, where assessed values have increased the last 5 years, and in the red, where the assessed values have decreased significantly. You can see the Marion Kessler, downtown, Near East Side, Fountain Square areas, Irvington areas being areas where assessed values have increased, and in pockets where many of our schools and communities are neighborhood schools in the deeper red and yellow portions of the map. We've highlighted the different median and quartiles of residential gross assessed value and homestead residential, including the residential rental, and homestead being just residential, non-rental. The median across the district for 2018 is $72,900. You'll see it broken down into the different township areas of the IPS district, where there is different medians across the district, with the maximum being in the Washington Township portion, just under $190,000 median, and in the lower portion, the Wayne Township portion of our district at $55,000. We've also looked at the commercial assessed value increases seen in our district. In the table on the bottom right is the commercial properties that have grown the most over the last 4 or 5 years. We also mark with a green check mark if that property was in a TIF district, and X being not in a TIF district. You can see a sizable amount of red in there, where there's certain parts of our district where the commercial assessed value has decreased significantly, but also portions near the downtown core and near West Side being very strong in the commercial assessed value. Jason also reviewed the amount of TIF district revenue in growth in our district. A large portion of the growth in the AV within our district has been within the TIF. As far as the TIF goes, Jason explained that if not assessed through a referendum, the TIF district AV is not assessed tax and the district does not receive that revenue. However, in a referendum, the TIF valuations are included. Another highlighted item was the amount of tax-exempt property, with IPS district being a focal point of our city, of our state, for governance, for education, for culture, for recreation, for parks and thoroughfares, social service agencies, a lot of tax-exempt property, otherwise be marketable property to be assessed for valuation. It is one that I think the commissioners asked for some comparisons with neighboring townships, and we're working with policy analytics to develop that type of presentation in a future meeting. As far as the historical landscape of certain areas of IPS district, this was a graph where we showed the IPS homestead for a center township resident. You can see the tax liability for that median household homestead being in 2018 $312. When you compare that to the 2008, 2009, 2010, it's either at or below those amounts. And it's fluctuated over that course of time. Whereas if you look at Washington Township portion of IPS, this is a very stable, equal line in most years, and this is mainly because of the property tax caps that Washington Township taxpayers are typically already at the property tax cap. So if we're only going to get any type of increase in taxes if their fair market value of their property increases. So that's the presentation that Policy Analytics provided. We had a number of follow-up questions that we're working on with them, and look forward to coming back to the board and the community to tell more of this IPS story. Any questions? Follow-up?
Any questions for Weston?
I have a quick question.
Commissioner Bentley?
Weston, on this slide, can you remind me what the average, it wasn't on the heading of this one. I can't remember what it was.
The median in Washington Township portion of IPS was just under $190,000.
Okay.
And that can be seen on, I think, slide 5 or slide 5 shows that 190,000, 188,900.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next superintendent report, commissioners, is our school spotlight. Tonight, we're pleased to recognize the work happening at William Penn School 49. We have the pleasure of hearing from Principal Corey Franklin this evening. He will spotlight academic progress achieved by the students and staff at William Penn School 49, and looking forward to hearing from him in his presentation. At this time, I invite Principal Franklin to the podium for the school spotlight.
Good evening, School Board Commissioner, Superintendent Fairby, and everyone else here. I am Corey Franklin, the proud principal at William Penn School, and I'm excited to share the great work that's happening. So this is the overview, things that I will share. So thinking about students, staff, and community, we are a pre-K 7 building with approximately 683 students with satisfactory staff retention, increased parental involvement through the strategic work of our parent involvement educator. Currently, we're at approximately 60% Latino, 30% white, 8% black, and 2% Asian or other, and approximately 85 team members, and that includes certified and classified team members. Some of the recognitions from the previous school year, we received the Indianapolis Urban League School of Excellence Award for 2017. We also had a letter grade increase to a B school, superintendent superlatives for the most growth during the 16-17 school year, so we're extremely excited about that. We operate under, for this school year, 6 school-wide goals, and so all of our students, our community members, and our staff understand and know these goals and what they mean. They're posted around our building, and we're very serious about it. But by the end of the 17-18 school year, 88% of grade 3 students will pass the iRead 3 assessment. And today was the very last day of iRead testing for us. We have 4 makeups, but we will certainly get that done. By the end of the 17-18 school year, 59% of students in grades 3 through 7 will pass the math portion of ISTEP. So we're really pushing for proficiency with that particular goal. Goal number 3, by the end of the 17-18 school year, 58% of students in grades 3 through 7 will pass the ELA portion of ISTEP. And we do recognize that that particular goal comes with some challenges, but we're undaunted by that and we'll continue to move forward. Goal number 4, by the end of the 17-18 school year, William Penn will increase the use of restorative and inclusive practices by 20%. So thinking outside of the box about what we do with children who may struggle. Instead of suspension, thinking very creatively about how we can keep them in school, and even working a little harder to use their parents to support the work that we're doing. By the end of the 17-18 school year, 65% of students in grades K through 2 will grow at least 3 reading levels from the beginning of the year to the end. And we use TRC, which is an acronym that stands for Text Reading Comprehension. And so we make sure we consistently progress monitor those students that are struggling, and we really use the guided reading model supported by Jan Richardson's work, and so that's been very supportive and helpful. By the end of the 17-18 school year, 97% of our students will have an attendance rate of 98% or better. So what we're doing from kindergarten all the way to 7th grade is we have our students tracking their own attendance because we want to make sure that they're setting goals and they're owning some of that. Some of our big rocks this year, which helps us leverage our instruction in the work we do, we're focusing on rigor, co-teaching, academic feedback, guided reading, guided math, culturally responsive teaching, and trauma-informed care. So those are the things that are on our plate this year that we're really, really focusing on, and we're making sure we're providing ongoing PD to support teachers, families, and students with making sure these things truly happen. Some points of pride. We did receive a 2-year grant through Purdue University for $1.1 million to really support STEM work and agricultural work in our area. And so we've been very pleased with working with Purdue University. They really support students in grades 4 through 7, and they push in through our science classes, and that's been very, very helpful. And so the ultimate goal is for our students to continue to develop and learn a love of, STEM and deepen that love. Also, I'm very pleased and excited about the 5 special programs we have. We are a very unique building, and we love every minute of it. We have developmental preschool, severe disabilities, moderate disabilities, mild disabilities, and we also house our district's Phoenix Academy. And so that's for students in grades 3 through 5 who just need some additional supports. And perhaps at this time, maybe their regular school setting just isn't working for them. So we work closely with them and mental health services to really provide them some supports and tools to help transition them back to their home schools. Some other things happening around our building, departmentalization for grades 4 through 7. We've seen a lot of success with that. That helps us strengthen our PLCs because we can have a laser-like focus around instruction as it relates to English language arts, math, science, social studies. School-wide intervention block, so reviewing our data constantly, making sure that we set up interventions school-wide and we can monitor that since that school-wide block is in place. Also, school-wide PBIS implementation. So everyone in our building has a class dojo account, and so we really push that, and that has increased our communication with parents. But across the building, staff and other folks can really monitor that and see where kids are doing great things. And then we have guided instruction with Title, ESL, and SPED. So we loop everyone in there. Looking at our ISTEP data, so the proficiency was 48.3%, and then the growth in 2007 with the top 75% being at 102.9 points, and then bottom 25%, 108.5. Proficiency in math, as you can see, 45.5% in growth in 2017. Top 75% at 94.6, and the bottom 25% at 104.8. Some of our partners, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, AmeriCorps, Boy Scouts of America, Eli Lilly and Company, Girls Inc., Girl Scouts of America, Hallville and Morris Branch Libraries, IUPUI School of Ed, Mary Rigg Neighborhood Center, Midtown Mental Health, Peace Learning Center, PTA, Purdue University, Southwest Clinic, Target Optical Center, and West Indianapolis all play a very critical role in the work that we do. We are a very proud community school, so we rely heavily on these partners to help us do the work that we do. And are there any questions?
Thank you, Corey, and commend you and the staff for your accomplishments. Could you share a little bit more before you take questions about Class Dojo and what that tool provides for your families and your staff?
Sure. So Class Dojo is an online, it's an app, but we also manage it online as well. It's an opportunity for parents to see in real time what's happening in the classroom as it relates to behavior. Parents can send teachers messages, school staff messages, and students get points for the day. And we really accentuate the positive, so it's not based on what students aren't doing, but we try to give students points for positive things, and that allows parents to see every single day how their child is behaving in school. If there's a big assessment coming up, we're able to send out a blast to parents through Class Dojo, but it really creates a sense of stronger communication for students and families as it relates to behavior, and parents are always able to connect with what's happening in the classroom real time. Students can take pictures, or teachers can take pictures, upload it, parents can see under their child's account, and so that makes it very helpful, so parents are always informed with what's going on. And we're using that school-wide, so that's been very helpful for us. And we can look at data trends, and we can determine what's working well and what's not, and we can provide intervention and supports just based on that. So we're also using it as a data tool.
Commissioner Gore.
I'd like to thank you for coming this evening and highlighting your school's positives, and sounds like you're on a good trajectory there. However, I was listening to you about Phoenix. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Are the children taken out of the school and then integrated back after or behavior changes?
Sure. So our Phoenix program, it's a referral process. So again, students who may grapple in their traditional school setting are referred to us. We have a school counselor, we also have mental health, and we have classroom assistants and trained staff that work closely with students with challenging behaviors. And so we meet as a team and we look at each referral. And based on a set criteria, we welcome students into the Phoenix program. And we spend a lot of time setting behavior goals and academic goals. But the goal is, after a semester, for the child to transition back into their home school. And so we really set goals from day one, and we track that progress. We also have just started inviting home school counselors and social workers. So if a child was sent to us from a school maybe on the east side of town, we want for at least twice a week for that school social worker or counselor to come over and sit in group with us, watch the child, help work with them on certain goals that we've set, because we know that the ultimate goal is for them to be successful back in their home school. So we want to keep that connection strong. And right now that program in our building services students in grades 3 through 5.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Yes, Principal Franklin, thank you so much. This presentation is really great. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about your path to IPS, how you ended up where you are, and a little bit about how you support your own kind of professional development, because you have so many initiatives underway. How are you managing to juggle all of these efforts?
Well, I must say I am a proud graduate of Arlington High School. And so several years ago, I made a solid decision to return to IPS. I was an elementary principal in Anderson. And so I wanted to come back to the school district that really prepared me for learning and really developed me as a young man. And so I did just that. But as far as being groomed professionally, I am always looking at the funds that we have or our partners and looking at the needs that our school has. And I'm always thinking about bringing in outside sources to help professionally develop myself or our staff, or taking trips to attend professional development conferences across the nation. But that really sharpens my skill, and also using my colleagues as a resource. We're a strong professional learning community, and so that's really helpful for me as well, to just tap the intelligence of my colleagues too.
Commissioner Bentley.
I just had a couple questions. Can you explain what trauma-informed care is?
Sure, absolutely. So we know that the latest research about students and even adults and what they may be struggling with today is directly related to trauma. And so our district has even partnered with Dr. Desatel and Purdue University and others to really examine that work. And so we realized through conversations with our mental health provider that most of our students enter our buildings every day in some form of trauma. And so we realized that students who are experiencing trauma, number one, we need to know how to identify that. And number two, we need to know how to prioritize that. So we spent time really looking at how we approach children, and how when students enter our building, how we can assess where they are so we know how to educate them. And that's been a paradigm shift for us, because a lot of our teachers haven't really thought that way. And so it's been really exciting to see the mind shift change. And so, but it really examines the brain and how it works and how folks respond to trauma, and it looks different in students. And so we want to be aware of that, and we want to know how to better support. So I found that worthy of making it a big rock so that we can continue to improve our practice.
Okay. And then my other question is, congratulations on the performance and you've made a lot of progress, and I think it's very much appreciated. I know it's very hard work. Can you talk a little bit about your arts instruction in the building? I know, we got to talk a lot about test scores, but what makes kids love school are the art instruction and other enrichment opportunities, and maybe some of those other enrichment opportunities that your kids are able to participate today then?
Sure. William Penn provides the core related arts program. So we have music, art, media, technology, and PE. So each one of our students attends those courses or those classes throughout the week. And we realize that some of our students are motivated a little more by the arts or through the arts. And so we do have an art club. We also have a running club. We also have bells. And so we have students that really appreciate playing the bells. But we continue to look at ways to strengthen that. But initially, our lens was looking at how to connect our academics to that. But we have noticed that there are students that connect through the arts. And so our students do have that opportunity, but we're always looking to deepen that.
And then do they have opportunities? I know that, transportation dollars are tight, but do they have opportunities to go on field trips and other enrichment opportunities like that?
Yes, and that's one of the beauties of having partnered with Purdue, in addition to Mary Riggs and Indy Parks, because when we just don't, have the building funds to do that, we can always tap our partners, and they're more than willing to say, hey, how much do you need, or how can we help? And so our environmental club, things like that. So yes, we do have that opportunity.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being here tonight. I love listening to the bragging of our schools that are doing a great job with our kids. So
No
thank
problem.
you.
No
Mr.
problem.
Arnold.
Can you walk me through slide number 10, the numbers, and explain to me what those are?
Sure. So if you look under ELA for proficiency, that's how many students in grades at that time, in grades 3 through 6, actually passed the ELA portion of ISTEP. And then if you look at the growth, the top 75% of students grew on average by that many points, and then the bottom percent the same. And the explanation is also the same on the math portion. So that proficiency is grades 3 through 6, average overall, how many students actually passed that assessment. And so since we are now looking at growth, we are very pleased to look at how many points we're getting for that top 75%. We want to continue to move that bottom, but we look at the growth and we celebrate that, because we know that maybe not every child will pass the exam, so to speak, but we do want to grow every child.
So the 102.9 is the number of points that they increased for?
On average, that's about how many points that's how many points the top 75% of students on average got in grades 3 through 6 for passing. Yes.
Commissioner Hoops.
Thank you for coming tonight. I always enjoy learning about the specifics of the program. I was interested in learning more, if you could expand, you were talking about the big rocks, what you were saying, rigor, and what that meant exactly, what sort of approach you're taking there, and then also the trauma-informed care.
Sure, so I'll start with rigor. So,
oh, they did? Stepped out.
No worries. So thinking about rigor, one of the things that we've gotten feedback about as a school is really making sure that we're differentiating for students and making sure students are getting what they need. So almost like personalizing that learning. But for us, we took the approach of, for rigor, of teaching kids how to think critically. And so that can happen through some cogitation, through conversations. And so we started with math first, so having intentional math talks, and so giving teachers question stems to give to students and allowing them to do the heavy lifting and ask the questions. And so my instructional leadership team and I, we practice and model that through our PLCs, and then we hold teachers and students accountable for it when we walk around, but we make sure we model. But we've started with math, so we've chunked it, but we started with math talks and making sure we're teaching kids how to think critically through question stems and through teaching them very specific math strategies to apply. And then we analyze that work, and then we can determine next steps. So that's how we're approaching rigor. And then trauma-informed care. As I shared earlier, we've realized that our kids come to us with trauma, and as a result, we want to make sure that we're best supporting and meeting their needs. So we're having professional development that really supports that and how the brain works. You're welcome.
Just one question for me. On slide 9, we talked about the class dojo. The acronym PBIS stands for?
Positive Behavior Intervention Supports. And so, you need explanation?
Nope.
No, okay.
That's all I needed.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Corey, and your leadership. It's important to know Corey has also led an effort to spearhead a cohort of potential principals in the district that are interested in pursuing their doctoral studies that we're exploring as an opportunity to enrich the growth of our school leaders and also potentially be a tool for retention, and just has been a great leader among his colleagues, and really fortunate to have him in the district. So again, we commend you and your staff for your work. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioners, the next report is item 6.03, which is an overview of the transportation community feedback. Tonight, Manny Mendez, Transportation Director, will provide an overview of the options and the input from the community forums and our survey related to our transportation model for the 2018-19 school year. We'll also share some variations based on the feedback received. This is not an action item tonight. However, we do want to ensure that commissioners have an opportunity to give us feedback on what's been shared and react to the community input, as we will need to have some type of decision, hopefully in April, as relates to our transportation structure for the 2018-19 school year. So with that, we'll turn to Manny to provide the overview, and we'll be happy to entertain your questions and look forward to hearing your responses.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me here today to provide the feedback. Before I get started, I do want to thank all the parents, students, staff, and especially a shout out to our PRD team who made all the surveys and the community meetings possible, and thanks to the commissioners that attended these meetings. So thank you very much for all your support. So tonight I'll go through our just a brief overview of the status, and then we'll go through the action items, exploring the later high school times, and then looking at the efficiencies, and then we'll talk about the tiers. And throughout the presentation, I'll talk to the feedback that we got from the community and the survey and the students. So when we talk about the bus driver shortage, it's impacting us. And we were very fortunate that the board has approved the contract for our AFSCME employees. And I am happy to say that we got our first hire within the last announcement. I have 2 in the portal, so they're going through their background checks. And I have 3 that have began the vetting process. So in less than 2 weeks, we're seeing opportunity. So I'm very pleased to report that back. What we're also seeing is on our attendance, bus attendance, we're seeing an increase in that right away. I think we have 5 in the pipeline right now. So just an excellent move by the board for us to move forward. As we move forward with that, we're going to be hitting the market very heavy, hitting the radio, TV. We'll be heading out to community events, faith-based community, et cetera. We're going to be just really pounding the pavement to try and fill the coffers. So thank you again for that. So as we went through the community meetings, we had 167 participants. We had online surveys of over 1,000 people, student focus groups, and student advisory council with an attendance of over 361. So very good feedback. Our PRD team also went to the media and hit the airwaves, phone calls, flyers, just good saturation of the market to get the word out and make sure that everyone that had an opportunity to hear our voice heard it. And so very pleased with that turnout. So as we start going through some of the survey results, we looked at will the middle and high school students learn better? So we asked that question of the community in the survey. And what we received was a 54% affirmative. So they do believe that it would make a difference. But that affirmative is also followed with the families have concerns, and we'll go through each of those concerns as we talk about the after-school employment, daycare, and early times for the elementary schools. So the feedback that we looked at for the later high school, we had the high school students has a job, and would it be affected? We had neutral and don't know as the higher percentile. But we did see a 31% that said they would be impacted with a 15% that said they didn't. So a little mixed review on that. So then the two questions here, does your child use the before and after school bus, your regular route? And do they use the bus for after school activity? And what we did see is 56% use the bus for their regular routes, and that the after-school activity bus is used, let's see, we're seeing 45 for the neutral and the strongly disagree. Or I'm unable to secure daycare, I apologize. This was the, I'm trying to see this a little better. Let me start over again, I apologize. Is it easier to find childcare before school versus after school? 56% disagree. And then we had the unable to secure before or after school care for my student. And that one was a 45% unknown or neutral, and with a 30% strongly disagree. So you're seeing the impact with the daycare. It's a concern, and it's something I think that our surveys and feedback wanted to bring forward. So we asked the student feedback, do you ride the bus after school? So do you ride the bus after school? And 76% was a yes, with a 24% no. And then we had the activity bus. Do you ride the activity bus after school? And that was 57% no and a 43% yes. So a little bit of mixed use for the students that ride the route bus versus the activity bus. Do high school students provide care for their siblings? 47% yes, 53% no. So you can see that there is an impact on the high school students that do provide care for their own siblings. Do you use other means of transportation to get to and from school? So we had 100 students that were surveyed on this, and 76 use their personal car, 18 use Indigo, and then you have Uber, Lyft, and the other 2 walk. So good feedback on the surprisingly how many personal cars are out there. I didn't have that when I was in high school. So how do IPS high school students feel about having a later start time? Well, they were in favor of it, 54%. Yet 37% opposed, and then indifferent on the 9%. So we did have the district student advisory council, and they were overwhelmingly expressed that they liked the current bell time. So we look at the efficiencies that we were trying to find to help kind of spread the bus shortage around and try to find ways to run more efficiently. So we wanted to look at extending the walk boundary to 0.7 of a mile for the high school, and we had a 51% affirmative with a 28% disagree. So reducing the ride time by increasing the student count at bus stops, we asked, can we look at having a high school as a bus stop? And that was received with favor. So now we go into the tiers. So the tiers, we were looking to improve the overall time, maximize our resources, and allow pairing and efficiency. So I presented the 3 options, and I'll go through each option and the feedback. So 31% were in favor of the tier 1, or the option 1, with the high school going at a 7:10 arrival time through a 2:30 p.m. bell time, and elementary at 9:35 with a 4:30. 19% of the people selected none of the options presented. Looking at option 2, that's where we had the elementary at a 7:45 time with an 8:05 bell, ending day at 2:40. This had a 43% accept rate. Still, there were concerns about the impacting the student employment for the high schoolers. Elementary students would be out at the bus stop at an early time. Daycare shifts could inconvenience families. And then we went to option 3, which was the least favorable, with only a 7% affirmative to that option. So I took the information back and I wanted to see if I could find other options. So I'm going to present tonight 2 additional options for the board to consider. So option 4 would be we keep the high school at its current tier time and we move the elementary to a 9:25 arrival time with a 4:20 bell time. It's a little bit of a shift. It allows me to have that time between the tiers so that I can definitely deliver the children. And it also stabilizes my AM routes, which are really important, especially on the cold days. We want to make sure that I have a better opportunity for on-time arrival. So we look at option 5. This is where we look at our current tier structure, our 3-tier that we have, with a little bit of a tweak. So you would keep your high school on the first tier. Your middle tier would get tweaked a few minutes from the original, and as well as your 3rd tier. What this allows me to do, where I have very little opportunity for pairing on the 2nd tier, this actually opens up a little more opportunity for that middle tier pairing. So it can give me a chance to maybe pair up a few more resources and still look at a favorable delivery time. And that's the update I have. Any questions?
Mr. Bentley?
Can you go back to that last slide? I can't remember what the current schedule is. You're talking about tweaking, and I just don't remember what it is now.
So, and I'm going to draw a blank here. I apologize. It's 8:15 on the 2nd tier, and it's, I believe, 9 o'clock on the 3rd tier. So
the bell time is 8:15.
That's the, yeah, that's, I believe it's the bell time. I look at it from the arrival time because that's my goal, is to get it to the arrival time.
So it would change by 10 minutes on tier 2 and by 40 minutes on tier.
It gets us that time that's so important. So that tweak will allow me to still pair, and that's the critical element where if we made no changes, tier 1 and tier 3 only had an hour of 15 minutes of tier time, which is not adequate. I need that additional tier time so that I can pair up and make sure that it works out.
Commissioner Arnold, I'm sorry.
I just want to, so under tier 3, they would leave the school at the latest at 4:15. And how would it be determined which schools would be tier 2 and which would be tier 3? They're all elementary, correct?
No, you have some of your innovation, you have some elementary. So what we can do is, if you're on that existing tier now, we would try to maintain that. There are a few schools that we would need to move. Shortridge is one because it's one of our all choice, so that would need to go to the first tier. We would look at trying to maintain as much of the current schools on the tier as possible, but we would need maybe a few tweaks that we would work through as we get closer.
So currently, what's the latest time that students are currently leaving school?
So our current time right now, I believe they're leaving at, I believe it's about 3:55. 3:55 for the last year.
That's the latest that
That's
any
the latest.
students left?
Yep.
Okay. Because I am concerned that I know there are now children not getting home from school until almost 5 o'clock. So if they're leaving, I mean, that's a long time, and, you know, we talk about it being dark in the morning, but it can also, in the winter, be dark. So the 4:15 would make it even later. What would be the longest amount of time that a child who would leave school at 14 would be on a bus before they would be let off at their bus stop?
And that's a good question. So when you look at that tier, the tier 3, the majority of those schools are your elementary community schools. So it's a much shorter ride. So that ride time is not like your innovations where you're cross city or new all choice where it's cross city. So we don't anticipate long because we don't have them now. I would see no reason for that to change.
And the greatest challenge we have with schools that are on the third tier, if there are schools that are like schools of choice or they have expanded boundaries, and so that would be one of the considerations if is desire to get elementary age students home earlier, we could move more of those schools to tier 2, particularly our schools of choice where we're transporting students across the district and they typically have longer bus routes. And the way you approached it previously is we asked for schools to have their school leadership talk with their community and volunteer if they were interested in moving previously when we moved to 3 tiers. And that process worked really well. And I anticipate, based on conversations we had with principals, there would be a number of schools that would be interested in moving from a late start time to earlier start time. But again, those are all changes that will impact family schedules. But there is a challenge when you have schools of choice, for example, a school like Sidner, if they're one of the schools that are ending even at 3:55, because they serve the entire boundary, it's almost impossible to have very short routes where you don't have students getting home late. So if that was school with now moving to second tier, those students would not get home as late compared to where we are now.
That would make sense. The community schools would be more likely with the shorter route to do that. Thank you.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Yes, and so are all of these suggestions assuming the other changes as well in terms of increasing the walk time and the bus? I mean, is that part baked into all of these, or would that also?
Well, yes, I would really like to have those other options as it's just another opportunity to improve the service.
Right.
So if when I was asked to look at this, I had to look at total picture, 360 degrees around this, and try to find my best way to deliver on time. And high schools as a bus stop, it really does knock time down. And since I am going to be traveling across town, it's those minutes. Again, you guys heard me through some of the community meetings. I think in minutes. That 5 minutes is huge to me. It's huge for our drivers, and I want to get as much of that time slimmed down. So yes, I would like those approved.
Commissioner Gore.
Looking at option 5, that's the option for you that would give you flexibility as well as the time between to get what you need.
Yes,
drivers.
Yeah, that would tweak it. I still am a little more in favor of option 4 because that allows my perfect pairing.
It gives you the 2 hours.
That gives me a lot of time. It also takes my resources and allows me to match up.
But option 5 is basically what we have now, am I correct?
With a little bit of a tweak.
Yeah, with the 10 minutes or so.
Commissioner Bentley.
Is it, because I've heard, my concern about the later time is, well, I'm concerned with both tier 2 and tier 3, because if we do the district-wide magnets at tier 2, I mean, I've heard from some parents that have kids that are on a bus for 2 hours and they're in 2nd grade. And so, it's trying to figure out where the I get that we don't, we've got this challenge because we have these district-wide magnets, but I'm worried about that 7:45 arrival time, because then you may have some kids that are on a bus at like 6 o'clock in the morning, an elementary school age child.
So depending on the location and seeing where we can make those additional slice, as you guys saw through my presentation in the community, where I had the John Marshall to Crispus Attucks, or to Washington route, and the line in the middle, the additional drivers, that time gets reduced. So the necessity that we have now versus our opportunity for the future, we will always look to challenge those long routes and reduce them as effectively as we can. We also have some constraints that we must live through, and I agree with them. The McKinney-Vento support, you've got to do it, and that can take you out of district, and those are some long rides. But it's the right thing to do.
Right. Absolutely. Can we stay on the existing schedule and make it work?
Without the tweaks,
Yeah.
I would not recommend that.
Okay. I'm just concerned about changing. We're getting kind of late in the game to make decisions on transportation, and families are making decisions on where their kids are going to school, and transportation often impacts those decisions. And then I'm just concerned about making a change this year. We made a change last year to this, went from a 2-tier to a 3-tier. Now we're making another change. And then I know we're trying to work with some other organizations to try to figure out, the high school scheduling. One of the reasons we wanted to change the transportation model was because of the research on high school students. So we're not achieving that in any way, shape, or form, and that was the whole reason we wanted to do this in the first place, because nobody wants to change people's transportation times because it does cause a lot of disruption. And so now we're not able to make the decision to move the high school start time based on the research. And so my concern is we just shouldn't make any changes until we can figure out sort of our options on, particularly on the high school changes. I'm concerned about, Shortridge has made some, they were committed to that 9 o'clock start time, and so now they'll have to shift to that 7:20 start time. That's a huge shift for those kids that have been used to, and 9 o'clock falls within what the research tells us as far as when the high school students should start. And so, I'm just leaning at this point towards not making any changes and really spending the next few months up and, to really look at this in more depth. I know you've been living and breathing this for a long time, and so have your people, and then, maybe get a task force of parents from the different schools to really look at this and then come back with a recommendation in the fall that could be put into place for 1920. But my concern is that we're going to make a decision, we're going to change the transportation yet again, and then we could potentially do it again next year. And we're not addressing the issue of changing the start time for high school kids, which was the goal and why we were even looking at changing transportation times in the first place. So, and I agree with all the challenges you've talked about, but I just feel like if we can't make those adjustments based on the research for high school, then what are we doing this for? That's my concern. And I know there's some funding issues and that kind of thing, but I just feel like we've just made so many changes to families that we probably ought to maybe rethink that.
But what we also...
hold on 1 second, Manny. The charge to the administration wasn't just around high school start time. It was to provide an all-choice transportation model to our high school students. And I think the administration was very clear that we may need to make some changes to our current transportation model to make that happen. And so there's kind of two opportunities that we're solving for, and I definitely appreciate your comments on the later start time. but we've also been charged with creating the best model to get all of our high school students to high schools of their choice based on their college and career interests. And I think we've been very clear that there may need to be some adjustments to our current transportation model to make that happen. I think this board gave the administration support to do that, and I think we're now at that point sharing with you, if we're to deliver on that transportation model, we believe it's in our best interest to adjust, the transportation structure that we have right now.
Commissioner Hoops.
I had a question about hiring. You mentioned you've started and sounds like you've made some good progress the last couple of weeks. What is the hiring target, and does that hiring target, whether it's met or not, impact these recommendations? Are you making some assumptions about what you'll be hiring in terms of staff for any of these?
So what I'm looking right now is to fill 30 positions before the end of the school year or before the start of the next school year. That will allow me to open up some opportunities for reducing those routes that we have right now. When you look at the time that I'm going to need between the high school students, the AM works out because you can start that and still meet their time in our existing environment. But when you change the environment, which is now all city challenge, that's where I'll need additional drivers for this to work. So yes, I'm basing the decisions on anticipation of filling those coffers. I'm also basing it on just what I feel is going to be the greatest concern, which is the ride time and reducing that ride time.
Arnold and then Commissioner Hoops.
I know one of the issues is that the buses have a capacity of, 60-something?
63 is what we're getting.
In
but
some
we get
cases,
less.
there are students sporadically, and that there are buses being run that may have 15 students on them or very small. I know at Washington, which is in my community, there's like 20-something buses or so a day, and some pulling out with very few students on it. Any thought to using a different kind of transportation, smaller vehicles that potentially there are more of that can go different routes?
Yeah, you're bringing up some great points. So when we did our surplus and we sold our older buses, we kept 2 of the small ones just for that. Because I do want to see if I can model something to reduce some of those long hauls. Unfortunately, I don't have enough drivers to even run a pilot. And that's one of those reality checks that I'm living right now. I am spending a ton of time just trying, to plug that leak versus being creative. Now, I can tell you that we model to try and run the max capacity that we can. But some of our routes just don't lend itself to a full bus route. Otherwise, that would take us outside of our sweet spot for, our average of 1 hour and 2 minutes for travel time, because we're picking up additional students. So that could take us above that average, which I'm really trying to stay as far away from that as I can.
Commissioner Hoops. I have a question in the interim on options 4 and 5. You said they're new. Have you taken any public input, any of the parent groups, school groups, the student advisory councils on options 4 and 5 at this point?
Not yet. Those were fresh off the computer.
Now, Commissioner Hoops has remembered.
In fact, my question was related to that because Dr. Farabee, you're saying, or Manny, maybe you did, about potentially taking action in April meeting. So I was curious as to what the plan of action was, since these are a couple of recommended tiers that hadn't been discussed at the community meetings or with students and so on, and parents.
Well,
So what was your plan or thought about that?
Well, what my hope was is that I have designed those 2 additional options from their input. So I should be meeting their expectations on some of their concerns. I've reduced the threshold of getting to 5 o'clock, so I've backed that off. Maintaining the high school at the first tier, so that is addressing the child care and the siblings. So I think I've taken the input seriously to develop these 4 and 5. So, you know, I think I'm giving the community what they've asked for.
Commissioner Gore?
We know that Enroll Indy has a deadline of the 15th. Are we going to vote it on this by that time?
The second round deadline for enrollment wasn't a consideration. Again, we wanted to ensure that commissioners had an opportunity to review and respond and react to our proposed options based on the feedback we received from the community. Commissioners are welcome, you know, to take action now at this point based on what we provided. But again, this represents our best thinking based on the feedback that we provided that we believe will position us well to provide significant on-time service to our students and families and also maintain the all-choice high school model.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Commissioner Moore. Didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
I was just saying we could vote on it tonight.
Could vote. I suppose we could vote on it. Is there any news that we couldn't vote on it tonight? Has it been on?
You can make a motion to add it as an item under new business.
I guess I'm sympathetic to the concerns Commissioner Bentley raised about sort of that we are changing a lot. I look at option 5 and it's not, as you say, it's not dramatic changes. I would like to hear feedback from some of the groups I know you've taken that feedback, built it in, but sometimes it's good to say, hey, what about, I'd be more comfortable if we heard back from some of those groups to say, we like that, or we want to make some modifications. I know we're not moving on the data that we know about later start times for high schools. I also know we are making lots of changes, and we need to be sympathetic to the fact we're making lots of changes. And so maybe option 5 is one we can say, get some greater feedback from those people. We know who attended the meetings, therefore they care a lot about transportation. Can we go back to them and get some input on the slightly modified option and then act in April?
I believe we have contact information for most people that participated, and we can share back to them, you know, what we've developed as a result of their feedback and give them the opportunity to respond and react.
If we're going to do that, I think it's important to let people know who's going to be in Tier 2 and who's going to be in Tier 3, because it sounds like that might be different than who's in Tier 2 and 3 now. If we're looking at more community-based schools being Tier 3, more choice schools being Tier 2, that's not necessarily so. I think we need to make sure people know just because they're in a certain tier now doesn't mean they would be in that same tier approved.
I think we could get pretty darn close to the list of schools on the tiers if we looked at the 3. I've already been approached by many of the principals, letting me know their wants. I can make it the official request and see what I can find from the principals and see if it balances out.
Yeah, and I just, I mean, we're making a significant change to one of our high schools by almost 2 hours, and I mean that's huge. And if I were a parent at that school, I wouldn't be particularly happy about that, and it's a lot of change for that. But, I mean, it's 2 hours difference. Are we having conversations with Indigo and possibly, looking at ways we can partner with them and, and looking at, I mean, my personal belief is we should really seriously look at how we're transporting high school kids and figuring out whether, because virtually every, choice school in IPS charter school uses bus passes in Indigo. I'm not sure why our students couldn't do that as well, since all of our high schools are on bus lines. We have this wonderful transit facility downtown. And, you know, I think that there are opportunities there to stop duplicating services because we are, you know, up against a lot of financial pressure. And, you know, we're all, you know, taxpayers are all paying into the same pot that's funding Indigo as well as our transportation system. And it just seems like it's a huge duplication of services. And you know, it wasn't that long ago that our kids were transported by Indigo. You know, the other question I had too, and this is again, but you know, it's too late to sort of think about new things because once we make this decision, we cannot make, you know, change it next year or the year after or the year after. I mean, it just, you know, we just can't keep doing that to people. But one of the things is, you know, is sort of point-to-point transportation. You know, if a student lives near, I'm going to just use Tech as an example. If a student lives within 7/10 of a mile of Tech, but they're going to Shortridge, you know, why can't they? Because I mean, this is again another structure that was used years ago, where students went to, you know, walked to their elementary school and then were bused to their middle school from that elementary school. And whether or not we could look at some of those, but again, we can't do it for this coming year. If we delayed the change and we're able to sort of look at some of those other ideas, we might have time to do it. But if we have to make a change for this coming school year, you know, I guess it doesn't make sense to continue to look at options because then that would mean we would have to again change the schedules for people.
Well, I think the high schools as a bus stop is, I think that's going to help quite a bit. And when you look at where the options are for bus stops, I think that expansion would not be completely out of line.
So is that something you've considered, or?
We looked at a lot of different options. Again, I've been working on this since April.
No, I know. Yeah, I know you.
So,
you dream
yeah,
about this.
I sleep and dream and nightmare about it. But it's all good and it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
I think we've been really clear about the Shortridge change, that when we made the decision to go to the all-choice model, you can't have one high school that's on a different time. And I think Principal Day and the staff have been aware of that, families have been aware of that for some time.
I certainly hope the parents are aware of that.
Yeah, because there's no way we could provide the transportation model with one high school on a different time than all the other high schools. To your point about if you make a change, you don't want to make a change again. I think that's maybe, you know, a part of our budget conversations, because we are still facing a significant deficit on the transportation side. And so, you know, maybe we want to, you know, include this in those discussions. However, I think option 5 is, I think, a reasonable adjustment to where we are today without a significant change. But of course, you know, we can continue to get feedback on option 5. But again, I just want to be clear, if we maintain the current structure we have, we are forecasting some challenges with on-time service. And so I just want to be clear, we're happy to follow the will of the board, but we want to raise that up.
Commissioner Arnold.
Is there a reason that all the high schools have to be on Tier 1? And, I mean, because they're independent buses, right? So there's buses that just do attics. Is there any reason that some elementaries couldn't be Tier 1 and some high schools couldn't be Tier 2 or 2 or 3? Why does it have to all be?
When you look at the sheer mass of buses that you need for the high school and the travel time, it really would not match up. Remember, I spoke about the operational hours. So if I were to put elementary school on the first tier, they operate at a different hours of operation versus the high schoolers. Well, that pulls away from that tier opportunity. So it would be creating single routes, which are not effective. So and we're also increasing the mass of buses with the all choice and the other schools closing. So we're going to be sending almost a full cadre in the morning with those designated hours. So it would be, I don't think it would even be possible to manage it through. It really is a sizable cadre of buses that are rolling.
Commissioner Hoops.
So essentially, the high schools just need to be on the same tier, whether it's tier 1, 2, or 3 is what you're saying.
Yes.
Whereas there could be flexibility on the elementaries in the innovation school as to which one. But essentially high schools have to be all 4 on the same tier.
We would need that.
Commissioner Bentley.
I mean, is it possible for, because like I said, there are high schools in IPS that actually are innovation partners with the district that use bus passes. And we have quite a few other innovation partners that don't provide any transportation at all. Or they have a loop bus or however they do that. I mean, if a school was interested in piloting a program using bus passes, if there was sort of obviously they wouldn't want to do that if they didn't have the support of their parents, because that would be a huge change. I mean, is that a possibility that we would be open to? I'm just trying to, figure out why we can't think about doing
it is,
the
and
bus pass.
it is something that we continue to explore. I'm actually on a mobility task force with a number of community leaders that's been headed by the CEO of Cummings to study that very issue of reducing redundancy, enhancing transportation, not only for public schools in the city, but just other issues. But this is the number one issue that we talk about, and the challenge is just volume. It's just, the schools that you reference have, only, a small fraction of students that ride the Indigo transportation. So Purdue Polytech, for example, class right now is 150 students. And only about half of those students rely on transportation, very small numbers for Heron as well. The sheer notion that we have 5,000 high school students and almost all of those students rely on us for transportation, Indigo infrastructure at this point would not support a structure that would get students on time without expanding their ride time in the morning or the afternoon. However, we do believe that there is potential to, as you said, look at some pilots, particularly around the fact that now more of our high schools are centrally located. For example, you have a high school like Shortridge where there's already Indigo stops essentially at the school. Again, those are opportunities that we're exploring, but Indigo is in a phase of redesign right now as they're expanding, they're growing, and shoring up their infrastructure to provide these level of service. I think we can get there, and we will get there, but I don't think that we would be there for the 2018-19 school year. But again, when we get there, that would be another change, and I think this will continue to evolve.
But I think having some type of pilot, and I just want to point out that when the district had 26,000 high school students, we did not provide transportation, and those kids rode the city buses. And I will, and I've said this before in the past, and I'll repeat it again, our students are public, the members of the public, and Indigo provides public transportation. And, I think that they would have to react to the increase in ridership, and I think in the long term it would benefit them. But, at the end of the day, we used to, our students used to, 26,000 of them used to ride public transportation. I know a lot of those kids probably walked or got rides or had their own vehicle, but it was a significant number of students that rode the buses. And, our innovation partners seem to be expanding at a lickety split. And, there are 1,000 students at Heron. I don't know how many Purdue wants to grow to 1,000. A significant number of those kids are going to be riding city buses. So I don't know why, we can't at least explore that or maybe do a pilot with one of our schools.
So I can tell you that we are having conversations with Indigo. So it's not that it is not being looked at. So I don't want to give you that impression.
And
we're not.
again, where we are with the budget, if is the directive is to, tell us what the savings would be if Indigo is the transportation model for our high school students. We're happy to present that and share that information.
Commissioner Solid.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure again that option 4 is the one that you personally prefer at this time. And is that mainly because you feel that you can offer families the best assurance of being on time? Because, I know you can't stand it when kids don't get picked up on time, but we all hear when kids don't get picked up on time. So for you to feel confident, that's the one you prefer because it gives you the most room for things that happen.
Yes,
Okay.
it does. That tier, it's stable. I have plenty of time between the tiers. It just makes efficiency work.
So I guess in hindsight, it's always 2020. I wish we could have had a question about reliability in the survey information in terms of satisfaction with how reliable our current bus times are and how important that is to families, if that is a variable.
Commissioner Gore.
Just to kind of sum up basically from the meetings, most parents chose option 4 as their new option if they had that time frame. However, not to make any changes for us, I guess. No, they didn't.
Option 2.
It was
Option 2.
23.
Yeah, there we go. Option 2,
Yeah.
which was 43%, which had the elementary. But the times, that's
That time
that's
just
your
didn't
twist.
work.
Right.
Okay. Well, I think the other one you did was even closer. The last, one on slide 23.
There we go.
Commissioner Arnold.
That one.
That's time.
Is there any way to shorten the time? I mean, I could live with the 2-tier. I just think 9:25 and kids not getting out of school till 4:20. Way too late for elementary. There's no way to have it earlier to get it done between 7 and 8:30 or
Yeah,
9 o'clock or anything.
I have tried to slice and dice this 101 different ways. It's when you look at that hours of operation that we have to match in, it's if I shift one, then I lose my opportunity on the PM. So when you look at how that axis works, when you push one time back, that means the PM gets reduced. When my PM gets reduced, that's when trouble happens.
I just personally think that kids not getting, not starting school till 9:45, late for elementary. I think it's a lot past their productivity time when they're their freshest and brightest.
Well, I think sort of what we've asked for is to go back and get some input from our constituencies on options 4 and 5 and hear back, and we'll expect to take action in April.
Yeah, and is there a will to create an option where high school students are not provided bus transportation?
I would love that. I mean, I'd like to consider it, or at least give schools an option if there's, if there are parents that are willing to put their kids on city buses, I think,
I'd have to see I feel like I'd have to see the parental data from that before I would add that. If there's a way between now and then, but I guess I'd like to see some input from the parents sending kids to those schools. Is that?
I was just going to say, I think we need to vote on the tier or tiers that we want. And if bus passes are an option, that's just an option. But we should get input, but I wouldn't want to go all.
Yeah, cold turkey.
Put all of our
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be a good way of exploring.
Thank you.
Thank you, Manny.
Thank you.
Commissioners, in Section 7, as President O'Connor referenced previously, we are bringing a batch of recommendations for the adoption of our 2018-19 budget appropriation. Section 7 covers the adoption for the 2018-19 school year with related authorizations, which I'll review. The items included in your materials were presented at the March 5th budget public hearing and review at Tuesday agenda review session, which includes item 7.01, which is adoption of the school year 2018-19 budget appropriations. Item 7.02, which is approval of the establishment of our capital projects fund. Item 7.03, which is approval of establishment of our bus replacement plan. And item 7.04, which is the authorization to appeal incorrect advertisement of property tax rate or levy. Item 7.05, which is authorization of the continued neutrality of the GO bonds. Item 7.06, which is authorization to submit and enforce waiver from implementation of protected taxes. The administration asks that the board consider and approve resolutions 3001-18 through 3006-18, adopting the proposed 2018-19 budget and authorizing the associated actions as presented.
We've had the budget appropriations presented to us several times. Are there any questions with regards to the budget at this time?
I think Weston did a really good job of reminding us that this is not a line item budget. This is a statutory budget to be given. It goes to Department of Local Government Finance, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Vote on all of them at once.
Yeah. So items 7.04, 7.05, and 7.06 were not included in Tuesday's materials, but represent authorizations, as you heard Dr. Farabee describe, with implementation of the approved budget appropriations. Unless there are objections, I would request that we consider items 7.01 through 7.06 as a single motion.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve resolutions 3001-18 through 006-18 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you. Next section is unfinished business. First item of unfinished business is item 8.01, which is a recommendation for the innovation restart at Wendell Phillips School 63. In your materials, you have the proposed innovation network charter agreement, along with supporting documentation, including the application, boundary information, and timeline, asking that commissioners approve resolution number 7780 as presented, authorizing the district into an innovation network agreement with Matchbook Learning.
Wendell Phillips has been presented before. We do have a number of individuals signed up to offer comments on this item. Those who have signed up, please come forward to the podium when your name is called. And Mr. Mulholland, will you please call the commenters?
Kiana Fields, followed by Talea Fields.
And I'll remind our speakers again, you have 3 minutes once you approach the podium.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me speak tonight. My name is Kiana Fields, and I am a parent of a 6th grade student that has been attending Wendell Phillips since the third grade at Wendell Phillips. I am here to speak in support of Matchbook Learning as a chapter operator in Window Phillips. Over the past few years, my daughter has been struggling in math, so this year I made sure to sign her up for additional tutoring at the beginning of the school year. But the school has not yet notified parents of the tutoring services and resources available for struggling students. If Matchbook Learning is voted in tonight, it is my understanding that next year my child and others will have access to resources to be successful students and more prepared to move on to the next grade level, which in individualized learning plan under Matchbook Learning, my daughter will have the opportunity to catch up in areas where they struggles and excel in areas where she is ahead. I hope to see more extracurriculums for students to choose from. My daughter enjoys classes like choir and other languages and physical education, yet not all of these classes are offered at Window Phillips. Not only that, but there are not many after-school activities and tutoring programs for my daughter to participate in. Currently at Window Phillips, it is my hope that Matchbook Learning will bring back a variety of activities, sports, and clubs for students to participate in, because right now I feel the school does not have enough activities available to keep students motivated and excited about going to school. As a visually impaired parent, school transportation matters greatly to me. I believe that as an innovation network school, Matchbook Learning will have the ability to secure the resources necessary to provide an after-school bus for my kids and others who would be participating in after-school events. As a parent who seeks to be more engaged, I hope to see the school will improve communications and outreach to parents and more opportunities for parents to come into the school and celebrate their child's learning. Tonight, I will encourage you to vote for a favor of Matchbook Learning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I had her read that for me, so now she's getting ready to read hers.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you for taking the time to listen to me speak tonight. Again, my name is Talia, and I am a 6th grade student in Window Phillips. I am here to ask you to support the restart of IPS 63 by Matchbook Learning because I believe my academic success will be positively affected by this change. I believe I would benefit under the individualized learning plan that Matchbook Learning has to offer. If I am struggling in a class, I will not be signaled out as a student who is behind, but rather I would have opportunities to learn the material in a way that works best for me. Matchbook Learning would will help me catch up where I need it and excel in areas where I am not challenged enough. I believe Matchbook Learning will help the students of Window Phillips perform well by securing the resources needed to fund programs that help students by offering tutoring, Boys and Girls Club, Girl Scouts, and so much more. Personally, I would also like to see the school get a dance club. As a student with a visually impaired mother, transportation can sometimes be difficult for our families to navigate. As an innovation school, I am confident that Maxwell Learning will have the ability to secure the resources necessary to provide all students with to participate in after-school activities with a bus ride home. I want to have more opportunities to go on field trips and and learn about inside the classrooms and outside of the classroom. I hope we get to see speakers we use to have motivational speakers, but we don't anymore. I want the opportunity to explore my interests, and I believe Maxwell Learning will provide these opportunities for me. Lastly, I know that Maxwell Learning is voted in will hire the best teachers to teach in our school. I am confident that Matchbook will find teachers that were like my favorite teacher who rewarded positive classroom behavior, listened to me whenever I have a rough day, provided guidance, and was someone I trusted and looked up to. Please do the right thing and vote to bring Matchbook Learning to my school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlene Kurtz, followed by Tara Johnson.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I am here before you to ask that you vote in favor of Matchbook Learning, restarting in Wendell Phillips next year. I am an alumnus from Wendell Phillips, and my grandson attends the school, and I will do everything I can to help make the school better because I believe all kids deserve access to quality education. Matchbook Learning definitely needs to come to IPS 63. This is the change we need. The community needs to step it up and also help our children become educated so they can improve their grades, move on to high school, and hopefully move on to college or a career where they graduate from high school. I ask that you turn this school around for our kids and our community. Kids don't want to graduate from an F-rated school. A school should never get to 1 year or failing or 2 or 3 or 4. There needs to be better communication between schools and families so we don't get to this point in the future. I ask that you turn Wendell Phillips around before the state takes it over. I'm afraid if the state takes it over, the school will eventually be closed. This is a community school, and I don't believe the state is interested in the school existing as much as the community is. That's why I think Matchbook Learning is a better option. Matchbook Learning would be focused on education and I-STEP, learning and bringing Wendell Phillips out of the F rating. The state doesn't have the investment in this community like the parents and children do. But as IPS school board members, you have the districts, you live in the districts where you serve and have a real interest in our communities. I would want to ask you all with respect, how many of you have attended IPS schools growing up? I hope to see a real change in IPS in our public schools. I hope that no more school will receive failing grades and need to be considered for a restart. I hope that other IPS schools can take lessons from Matchbook, learning and see the way they teach the children and use that to improve the existing IPS schools today. I don't think the state should ever take over an IPS school, but every level, IPS needs to improve. This board needs to improve the communication between principals, teachers, and parents. It needs to improve if a school is failing. And
Thank you.
I have a question for you. So we're actually 14. I don't know if you want us to present now, since you're on
No,
Wendell
that's
Phillips.
later.
Okay, she was
Yeah.
called up next.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Peggy Conrad, followed by Jeanette Franklin. Felicia Chapman, followed by Kalara Chapman.
Good evening. Thank you for listening to me and other parents who are here tonight in support of restarting Wendell Phillips. My name is Felicia and I am a parent at Wendell Phillips. You may remember me. I came here with a few parents last month to read you a letter of support. We told you we would be back with a petition with signatures of support from parents from Wendell Phillips asking that the school be restarted by Matchbook Learning. Through the work of me and other parents, we have collected 78 signatures in support of Matchbook Learning as the operator of IPS 63. We are here today to deliver this petition with 78 signatures of parental support for this restart and hope that you will listen to the voices of parents in our school and support Matchbook Learning tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Keeler and I'm a 7th grader at Wendell Phillips. I am here today to ask you to vote in favor of Matchbook Learning, restarting in Wendell Phillips next year. I want quality teachers and a new principal. After meeting Amy Swan a few times, I have decided that I really like her. I want nice teachers who are educated and do not have to look for the answer key all the time, just answer my question. I have had teachers in the past who have heavily relied on the answer key. Several teachers have the front desk number on speed dial. Students are either talked to or the parents take them home. I feel like that doesn't work to fix the problem. I also feel like a good teacher rewards positive behavior and understands each kid's situation at home and home life. At Wendell Phillips, some kids suffer from abuse in their home life. Teachers should have special training where they learn ways to help kids by rewarding them for their good behavior. Some teachers don't understand that a phone call home can be the worst possible thing you can do. I want my teachers to go through training because sometimes they don't understand that snapping on us is worse. There are some things I hope to see changed after this vote. I want quality teachers and counselors who are able to get to the root of the story, get to the point, and help students get back into class learning. Having a real trained counselor who can get to the root of the problem will be even better. There are a few programs I hope to see added to the school: a girls basketball team, track, Girls Inc., Soul Sisters, and the Boys to Men's Club. We also need to focus on educating students on domestic violence and prevention. Matchbook Learning will be a very great school model for me because sometimes I feel like I'm waiting for the class to catch up with me. I am mature for my age, but new things may take me time to learn. Usually I am not challenged enough and I know that I can do more. I can learn quickly. I would take Spanish and French classes if they were offered. And as a drummer, I would want music classes that really challenge me and a real drum set, not paint buckets from Lowe's. I hope Matchbook Learning can bring these changes to Wendell Phillips, and I hope you will vote to allow them the chance to make a real difference in my school. Thank you.
Valerie Key.
Is it okay if I read for Jeanette Franklin? She's in the hospital. Did she send her letter?
Yes.
My name is Charlene Kurtz, and I'm speaking on behalf of Jeanette Franklin, a parent of 2 students at Wendell Phillips, who was unfortunately unable to make it out tonight due to some health concerns, but she is watching us, and I will be reading her testimony on her behalf. My name is Jeanette, and I am very excited about Matchbook Learning partnering with IPS and Wendell Phillips to turn the school around. I ask that you vote in favor of these changes tonight, because the individualized learning plan they offer will be life-changing to my kids and the rest of the community. My sons are currently bored in school. I really like that the kids can move ahead if they're bored and learn at their own pace. My kids are scared of change at their school, but I tell them it's going to be better next year. I tell them that they will get more attention and caring from their teachers, and if they're bored with classwork, they already know they can move on to the next step. I want my boys to be in band, foreign languages, and sports. My son is into soccer, I want more sport options for my boys. Today, they don't have these opportunities at school. At first, I was really upset when I heard of the F rating Wendell Phillips had for several years. I had no idea. I was not sure how the district, the community, and the school were going to fix the problem, and I was wondering why we were allowed to fail for so many years. My kids' education and every student at Wendell Phillips are affected by this. They don't deserve to go to an F-rated school just because it's their boundary school. No child does. After meeting with Matchbook Learning and getting to know our potential new principal, Amy Swan, I decided that I really like her, and I believe that she and her team are going to turn this school around. She has answered all my questions and concerns about Matchbook and how the school will change. I am excited that Matchbook Learning will be hiring top quality teachers, and I know the teachers will work hard to understand each of the students in the class. I hope that they will know how to deal with each child and understand their behavior. I hope these teachers will have good positive school discipline training and redirection to help. I also hope the school will have the resources to finally get a nurse. A counselor, a therapist would be great too. One thing I want the board to know is that currently there are very negative teachers and staff spreading disinformation about the current situation in Wendell Phillips. Each front desk staff member who know I am active in this campaign to improve education for my kids and others will say things to me like, "Don't you know that we will be losing our jobs?" My response to them is that this issue is about quality education for our kids, not about administrators and teachers who may lose their jobs. The staff are more worried about their job than about the children's education, and this disappoints me. Please vote in favor of Matchbook Learning, restarting with Wendell Phillips. Thank you.
I have Valerie Key.
Good evening, and thank you for taking the time to hear me speak tonight. My name is Valerie Key, and I am a parent of a kindergartner at Wendell Phillips. I am here tonight because I support Matchbook Learning, and I believe that you should too. There are several things that I like about Matchbook Learning. I like the fact that if the child is not progressing in their learning, the school will make sure they complete and learn everything they need to before they go to the next step. I like that there would be more field trips, learning opportunities, and more sports available for the girls. I have friends who have daughters who want to be more involved in school clubs and teams. I used to play basketball on a girls' team in high school, and it helps to be able to connect with your peers on activities outside of the classroom. I like that at Matchbook Learning, kids will be able to choose a foreign language they want to learn. I want my son to learn Spanish at a young age. One thing I do think Matchbook Learning needs to do is have bullying prevention in the school. I want the school to have mental health services available and teacher training in positive school discipline. Right now, the school has dojos so parents can stay connected to their kids in school. I hope Matchbook Learning keeps in touch with parents with the same or a similar program. I like to see how my child is performing. My son, Agape, loves his teacher, and I communicate regularly with his teacher. We communicate and help each other out to better my son's education, and I hope the teachers at Matchbook Learning would do the same. One day I went to the school, and at the front desk, a school staff member said that I couldn't visit my son's class to speak with the teacher. And I think that you should be able to go anytime and be able to speak to the teacher for a few minutes. Amy Swan will be the principal if Matchbook Learning restarts Wendell Phillips, has already been so welcoming to me and other parents, and I believe she would allow parents to check in on their kids' class. Lastly, I want you to know that transportation is important to me. An after-school bus is a necessity. And I also hope for better parent communication between the school and the parent regarding transportation. I want the school to inform parents ahead of time if the buses is going to be late, not afterwards. Again, I support Matchbook Learning, and I urge you to do the same when we vote. Thank you.
I have Allie King. Is this for School 63 or School 14? Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. I am the Executive Director of Youth for Christ, and we facilitate programs in the 6 focus areas in the city: city life, parent life, and juvenile justice that support 11 to 19-year-olds. This includes the Hallville neighborhood, and I'm also a resident of Hallville, and so I'm highly vested in the future of School 63. I'm here tonight in support of Matchbook Learning and their leadership of School 63. Our students and the kids who have already dropped out need schools, families, churches, nonprofits, and businesses all working together. We need to help them realize their success and have a new hope for their future. I take partnerships and advocating for people very seriously. By evaluating their program strength and their leadership of that organization and how they meet the needs of the kids that we so deeply care about, it is without hesitation that I support Matchbook Learning, their education model, and their capable leader here in Indianapolis. My neighborhood and the kids in that school need transformation of education to have success. And we will partner as another organization with Matchbook Learning and to help realize that dream for them as well. Thank you.
I believe that is all of our speakers. Was anybody not called that was speaking on School 63? Thank you. So we've heard from all the speakers. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 7780, authorizing the Innovation Charter Agreement as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? Commissioner Benton?
I just have a comment. It's really about both of these. And I have thought long and hard about this, and I've let the superintendent know that I, at this point, I'm just not going to support any additional innovation agreements, including the ones tonight. And it's not about these specific agreements, because I think that these, while I remain supportive, I think these programs will, do an excellent job with the students that have been trapped in schools that haven't served them for many years. But I'm frustrated with our partners, and I do that in quotes, that have not been helpful with legislation that would have allowed us to sell Broad Ripple High School, and have actually actively blocked our ability to do that. This was disheartening and disappointing, especially as we face some serious financial difficulties that will negatively impact our children. I'm sorry that Matchbook and Urban Act are caught up in this, but our partners need to start acting like partners. And, our district is facing some serious financial issues, and we need our partners to be supportive of us, and they're not going to be supportive, then, I can't continue to support them. I think this board has done amazing, I'm going to toot our horn. We've done our due diligence by selling non-school properties. We've, closed underutilized schools and made the difficult decision to close those schools. We've sold properties to raise much needed revenue, and we need to be able to sell that property as well. And, at the same time, we've become much more transparent in our finances, as much as some people don't believe that. We've moved to student-based budgeting, which is a much more transparent and equitable way to allocate resources in this district. It puts everything out in the open. I mean, I think we've done our due diligence, and we're not You know, we're not closing schools and selling property just because we think that's a fun thing to do. It's not a fun thing to do. We're facing some serious budget crisis, basically, in this district, and to have our partners actively blocking our ability to raise much needed revenue, it's just, it is very frustrating and disheartening, as I've said before. So that's where I am at this point.
Any other comments? Commissioner Arnold?
I would just like to say that I'm very supportive of this resolution. This school sits very close to not only where I live, but where I worked for many years. And unfortunately, it's a school that I have not been comfortable recommending for children in our community to attend. I encourage them to go for other options. I would even encourage them to go to charter schools and other schools rather than go to this school. So I'm very optimistic, very excited about the prospect of new leadership, new organization, and a school in the community that the children in our neighborhood can be proud of.
Commissioner Gore?
I just want to say that tonight I will not be able to support the resolution for matchbook learning. I don't feel comfortable about the school being able to take us to the next level, and I feel that panic doesn't always work. In no way did I want the state to take it over, but I just don't feel that at this time matchbook would be a perfect match.
Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
4-2. Thank you. Motion carries, sorry, I should say that. Motion carries 4-2.
Commissioner, the next item is item 8.02, which is a recommendation for restart for Washington Irving School 14. In your materials, you have the recommendation and the Innovation Network Agreement, along with the Resolution 7781 and associated materials around the partnership as presented for Urban Act. We're recommending that commissioners approve resolution number 7781 as presented.
We also have a number of individuals signed up for comment on this item this evening. Please come to the podium as your name is called, and you'll have 3 minutes again.
Anna Cheney. And is the young lady with you Tara Johnson?
Yes.
Okay, great. We'll do both.
Can you all see her?
Should have her come around.
Come over here.
Can we hand her a mic? Oh, she has.
Hello, Doc.
It is. No, it's not. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, Doctor. Hello, Doctor. Hello, Dr. Therapy and board members. My name is Tara Johnson. I am a second grader at Washington Irving School 14. I love my school, but there are some things that could be better. We need better technology, more sports activities, projects we can do to help our neighbors, more reading programs. I think Ms. Livingston can do these things. Please vote yes for Urban Act Academy. Thank you for your time.
You gotta slide over. Good evening, board. First and foremost, I would like to say that these are the people that are affected by this, and what happens to us, the adults, aren't quite as important as her future. Of course, I'm Tara's mom. We've been at Washington Irving for 3 years, and we do love that school. And there are some things that need to change. I believe Ms. Livingston and Urban Act Academy is the right choice for our school. I believe Urban Act Academy will give our struggling school a chance to embrace personalized learning opportunities, provide new creative experiences that will benefit our kids along with the community, and challenge the staff and students to think outside the box. This has been a really challenging situation. And I have been, since the SQR was announced at 14, pushing parents to come, be involved, to speak their piece, and along with having the opportunity to be introduced to operators. And I believe Nigina and Urban Act is the perfect fit for Washington Irving. So I'm asking you all to remember, this is the only thing that really matters in this. Please vote yes this evening.
Judith Florimon, followed by LaPortia Mitchell.
Good evening, Dr. Furby and members of the board. My name is Judith Florimon, and I am the parent of Aaliyah and Jason Florimon. They are currently attending IPS School 14. I have my older son, his name is Jeremiah, and he's at Harshman Middle School. However, he was a student for 2 years at Washington Irving School 14. As a parent and education advocate, I believe Urban Act Academy can and will provide the requirements to change the academic performances for my children as well as other students attending IPS School 14. The Urban Act Academy program is specifically designed to meet each student's needs on their educational level and challenge them to learn new things while assessing factors that inhibits their growth. The model is also based on creating a connection with each student in a way that will help them to transition from one subject to another and connect to real-life experiences. I believe this model has a realistic approach that will help students to better understand how education applies to everyday life. Ms. Nigina Livingston runs the Urban Act Academy, is a force behind producing great teachers. Her talents and skills have been shown through her data, her student growth, and their academic performances. She has spent most of her time in the classroom building teachers to master their skill and help them so they can help their students. Through her model, she emphasized the importance of providing professional development sessions and trainings that will create a positive cultural environment for both teachers and students. I am really impressed with her devotion to have parents involved and be part of their child's education. She's allowing time to meet parents on one-on-one and to hear their concerns about their children's needs. I had a chance to meet Ms. Livingston on one-on-one and talk to her personally about my concerns and the needs for my children. She really showed great interest, and which shows her commitment as well towards my children's learning. I believe Ms. Livingston and her model for Urban Act Academy program will change the lives of my children as well as other students attending currently. I am asking the board to vote for her to become the new operator of Washington Irving School 14. Thank you.
Good evening, board, and thanks for hearing me out tonight. I'm LaPortia Mitchell. I'm a parent who believes in a better and brighter future for our children. I'm a member of Stand for Children, and I have 2 children that has attended School 14 for the last 2 years. I will say there is room for improvement. I have a preschool who will be attending School 14 next year, and I'm here to say improvement is good, and with improving something, you need a leader, a positive role model, someone who really cares for these children in their day-to-day lives to make it happen. I believe in Ms. Livingston, and that's why she has my vote to be a true leader that will create more leaders. I believe in her vision, her plan, and goals that she has for School 14, making education better for our teachers and students, bringing experience and growth into the school. She brings a good positive impact and believing in herself to be a great leader. I feel like she has great intentions to improve and make things better. My vote for Ms. Livingston because she's a leader, she has experience, she has numbers to show the wonderful impact that she will bring forward. Any leader like that, I would love for her to be a part of my children's education and growth. So with that being said, with a solid, dedicated leader that wants to see and make improvements for teachers and students, along with the families' day-to-day lives, why not give her the opportunity to show and prove? As a parent, involved parent, I want to improve, as an involved parent that wants to improvement for my children and all children, I'm asking the board to vote for Urban Act Academy and Ms. Livingston as the principal for School 14. Thank you.
Our final 2 speakers are Sherry Holmes, followed by Kim Davis.
Neither of those 2 are here. We've heard from the commenters. Thank you to our speakers. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 7781, authorizing the Innovation Charter Agreement as presented?
So moved.
It has been moved and seconded. Any comments? Commissioner Gore?
I, again, will not be able to vote for Urban Act. I feel that IPS has the opportunity to use our own resources to improve failing schools, and I felt that 14 would have been one. Prior to the time of takeover, using outside partners is one way, but not the only answer when we have a good core of principals and staff to work on our own to restore the academic quality to our failing schools. With the support of and the assistance of the IPS administration, we need to be more proactive than reactive, and I'd like to think that we'll do that. So as we move into innovation, I'd like for us to understand as a board that it's a big responsibility for us to ensure that all aspects of our contract and all are adhered to. And that's why I feel at this point we need to pull back and take a look at the ones that we now have to ensure that they are adhering to our contract guidelines and talk to their immediate board members, since we are all in charge of the oversight for those schools. Again, panic doesn't always work.
Commissioner Hoops?
I just wanted to follow up on a comment that I had made on Tuesday, just a general request to the administration that I will be supporting Urban Act, but I'd like for us to revisit once again what our overall process is for evaluation and continuing to evaluate the performance of these schools. Ms. Johnson talked about that on Tuesday, which I appreciated for reminding us of some of the things that we do, but I would like to have a presentation, whether it's a work session for us to take a look at it again, and perhaps we might make some modifications to that, and also to get a better understanding of what the requirements are also for when a school is authorized by a charter, they also have requirements, and just to get an overview of what their process is for evaluation, and look at our own.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-2.
The next item, Commissioners, 8.03, which is a recommendation for approval of modified enrollment priorities as presented with resolution number 7782. It's important to note that the priorities presented represent a solution for the sibling preference challenge that commissioners have asked administration to address, placing after in-district now sibling preference and then in-zone preference as part of the K-8 priorities, particularly for those choice programs that have multiple sites. Also had discussions with commissioners and provided additional data as relates to the conversation around Shortridge. I believe that the intent and the will of the board is to maintain the current priorities for Shortridge in our high schools, but to address the sibling preference challenge as requested. So what you have before you is a resolution that addresses that particular issue.
Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 7782, approving the modified enrollment parameters as presented?
So moved.
It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I
Commissioner,
would like to see a report out after we're done with all water and what the overall impact was.
after you want the second round or the full 3 round? Okay. Noted. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item is item 8.04, requesting that commissioners approve the maximum price guarantee for the construction management constructors model as presented.
As discussed, this item was approved in the consent agenda, and no further action is required for item 8.04.
In new business, there's 2 items. The first is 9.01, requesting that commissioners approve the list of stale dated checks as presented.
So moved.
Do I?
Second. Oh, sorry. Jump the gun.
Are you in a hurry?
I kind of am.
Do I have a motion to approve the cancellation and receiving of stale dated checks as presented?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'll move quickly. Next item is 9.02, request that the Board of Commissioners approve the request for out-of-district learning excursion for CFI 84. Ask that commissioners approve the proposal as presented.
Do I have a motion to approve the field trip as presented? Field trip request as presented. Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are at closing comments. Does any commissioner wish to offer closing comments?
Yesterday I stood as an ally to our students at Shortridge High School who had a sort of an organized time in the morning to remember and think about the students down in Florida who were killed. And it was, all student-led. It was very, it was moving. It was a silent walking for 17 minutes for the 17 victims. And, I was very proud of the students. I was proud of how they organized it and how committed they were. And, they carried signs that talked about their reasons specifically for acknowledging what happened down in Florida and for why they were walking, and every one of them was different. And so I just thought it was a wonderful way for those students to voice, their feelings on, a topic that not everybody agrees what the solutions are. And it was wonderful to sort of watch social media and see what other students were doing in some of our other schools. And from everything I've heard, it just, it went really well. And we had CFI School 2 on the cover of USA Today. So I want to thank the staff for sort of supporting the students without, sort of taking sides on an issue. I want to really congratulate the students for doing a great job in organizing some very different ways to mark the situation in Florida. And so I just, they should be very, very proud of themselves, and I thank them.
I want to wish the students, the teachers, the administrators, the superintendent, staff a safe and well-deserved spring break. Everybody's been working hard on ISTEP and iRead, so congratulations. Be safe, be well. Dr. Farabee?
Since you referenced spring break, just a reminder that Monday is a makeup day. So we will have school. It's a makeup day for January 12th, and spring break will officially begin on Tuesday, March 20th. A reminder to families in the community, we will launch our spring break meal program over the break beginning on Tuesday, March 20th. So families, please come out and enjoy access to meals during the break.
Our next meeting will be our work session Monday, April 16th, beginning at 6 p.m. at Purdue Polytechnic High School. Having completed all items on the agenda, this meeting stands adjourned.